The strong response from Vietnam regarding Margaret Nduta's case highlights the country's strict stance on drug-related crimes. Vietnam has long maintained some of the harshest drug laws in the world, imposing severe penalties, including the death sentence, on offenders regardless of nationality. The response suggests that Kenya's pleas for clemency were not enough to sway the Vietnamese government, which prioritizes its war on drugs over diplomatic considerations. Vietnam's leadership made it clear that their legal system does not discriminate, applying the same harsh punishments to both locals and foreigners. This reflects their broader commitment to combating drug trafficking, which they consider a serious threat to their society. Their response also challenges Kenya's moral ground by asking how many Vietnamese citizens Kenya has pardoned when caught in criminal activities. This rhetorical question implies that Kenya expects special treatment for its citizens, but does not necessarily extend the same consideration to foreigners on its soil. The execution of Margaret Nduta has reignited debates over the fate of Kenyans imprisoned abroad, particularly in countries with strict drug laws. Several Kenyans are currently facing death sentences or long-term imprisonment in nations such as China, Malaysia, and the United Arab Emirates. The government's ability or inability to intervene in such cases has become a matter of public concern, raising questions about diplomatic influence and the extent to which Kenya can protect its citizens overseas. For many Kenyans, the execution of Nduta serves as a stark warning about the risks of engaging in drug-related activities in foreign nations. Despite repeated awareness campaigns, some individuals continue to take the risk, lured by the high profits associated with drug trafficking. However, this case underscores the reality that some governments, like Vietnam's, have zero tolerance for such crimes and will not hesitate to impose the harshest penalties. Nduta's case has also sparked discussions about Kenya's approach to the war on drugs within its own borders. While Vietnam enforces severe punishment for drug offenses, Kenya has been criticized for its inconsistent handling of drug-related cases. High-profile drug lords have often escaped justice due to corruption, weak enforcement, or political connections. This discrepancy raises questions about whether Kenya can take a firmer stance on drug crimes without external pressure. Meanwhile, Nduta's family and supporters continue to express outrage and grief, arguing that she was not given a fair trial. Some claim that she may have been coerced into trafficking drugs or was unaware of the full consequences of her actions. Others believe that diplomatic efforts by the Kenyan government were not strong enough, and that more could have been done to save her life. However, Vietnamese officials have remained unmoved by such arguments. Margaret Nduta, a woman whose legal battles have captured national and international attention, is set to be executed in the coming hours. After years of trials, appeals, and public debate, authorities have confirmed that all legal avenues have been exhausted, paving the way for her sentence to be carried out. Nduta, who was convicted of a crime deemed among the most serious in recent history, has remained behind bars as activists, human rights organizations, and legal experts fought to have her sentence commuted. However, the government has remained resolute, stating that the law must take its course. Despite widespread calls for clemency, including petitions from global organizations, officials have maintained that her conviction was based on solid evidence and that she was granted every legal right available. The looming execution has reignited discussions about the country's stance on capital punishment, with some supporting the decision as a measure of justice, while others decry it as inhumane. Inside the high-security prison where she is being held, sources reveal that Nduta has been under close supervision as she approaches her final hours. She has reportedly received visits from religious leaders who have been offering her spiritual guidance. Family members were allowed a final visit, though they have remained largely silent in the face of media scrutiny. Reports suggest that Nduta has come to terms with her fate, though details of her final words or requests remain undisclosed. The execution is expected to take place under strict security, with only authorized personnel present. Authorities have assured that all procedures will be followed to the letter, ensuring that the process adheres to both legal and ethical standards. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, activists continue to protest, calling for a last-minute intervention to halt the execution. However, as the clock ticks down, it appears increasingly unlikely that any legal or political intervention will succeed in changing the outcome. The case of Margaret Nduta has raised significant questions about the justice system, not just in the country but globally. While some believe that her punishment fits the crime, others argue that capital punishment should be abolished entirely. Her impending execution will likely leave a lasting impact on legal discourse, political debates, and the future of criminal justice reform, whether seen as justice served or a miscarriage of justice. One thing is certain: her story will not be forgotten anytime soon. Meanwhile, Nduta's family and supporters continue to express outrage and grief, arguing that she was not given a fair trial. Some claim that she may have been coerced into trafficking drugs, or was unaware of the full consequences of her actions. Others believe that diplomatic efforts by the Kenyan government were not strong enough, and that more could have been done to save her life. However, Vietnamese officials have remained unmoved by such arguments, insisting that she was fully aware of her actions and their consequences. Kenyan officials now face growing pressure to develop a clear policy on how to handle cases involving citizens detained abroad. Unlike countries that actively negotiate for the release or reduced sentencing of their nationals, Kenya's approach has often been reactive rather than proactive. This has led to frustrations among families of incarcerated Kenyans, who feel abandoned by their government. As news of Nduta's execution spreads, reactions remain divided. Some argue that she knowingly broke the law and deserved the punishment, while others insist that capital punishment is too extreme. The broader question now is whether this case will serve as a deterrent, or if it will simply become another tragic chapter in the ongoing struggle against drug trafficking. In response to Vietnam's firm stance, Kenya may need to reconsider its approach to drug-related crimes at home. If Kenya were to adopt similar policies, it would likely face backlash from human rights organizations. However, some argue that without strict enforcement, the country will continue to struggle with drug-related issues. The execution also raises diplomatic concerns, as Kenya's relationship with Vietnam could be affected. As the dust settles, questions remain about what lessons the Kenyan government and its people will take from this incident. Will it lead to stronger protections for citizens abroad? Will it prompt a tougher stance on drug crimes at home? Or will it fade into memory like so many similar cases before it? For now, Margaret Nduta's fate serves as a harsh reminder of the unforgiving nature of justice in some parts of the world. Her execution has left her family in mourning, activists frustrated, and the public deeply divided. But beyond the personal tragedy, it has also exposed broader issues about law enforcement, diplomacy, and the global fight against drug trafficking. Regardless of where one stands on the issue, one thing is clear: this case will be remembered for years to come. It has sparked debates that will likely continue long after the initial outrage fades. Whether it leads to real change, however, remains to be seen. As Kenya reflects on this case, it faces a choice: to remain passive in the face of similar situations or to take proactive steps to protect its citizens abroad. In the end, only time will tell if the execution of Margaret Nduta was a singular event or a turning point in how Kenya handles such cases in the future.